I'm Chantal speaking here for Willis Towers Watson. I'm delighted to be here today to really lay the ground for the very interesting conversation we're going to have with Kim Mazzarelli and Mike Hughes about how we create change internally to make progress with regard to diversity and inclusion. It's a big topic, isn't it? Diversity and inclusion. And I was thinking about the future. If I'm preparing for this event next year, what would I like the headlines to look like in the weeks ahead of it? Because the headlines lately have not been wonderful, have they? So I'll quote. Financial Times, less than a month ago, it says, gender pay gap, women still shortchanged in the UK. Naming and shaming employers has not made men's and women's pay packets more equal. A couple of months before that, it was The Independent, quoting a survey from the Boston Consulting Group. And it says, UK workers are 3 times more likely to leave companies that fail to address diversity problems. And Bloomberg itself ran an expose a couple of months ago about the old ways continuing in some parts of the financial industry in the UK. So that's kind of by itself quite depressing. And I think in my view, we're really risking losing hearts and minds. So we at Willis Towers Watson have conducted a piece of research recently. And the results were that less than 50% of people actually feel their organizations do a good job with regard to eliminating bias and making opportunity equal for pay and promotion. I mean, flip them around, more than 50% of it don't believe that's the case. So I do think that we have a serious credibility crisis. And this is talking just about gender. So we haven't even broadened the conversation enough yet. What about when we start broadening it to things like ethnicity? And some organizations are thinking about it. Some organizations in the UK, including the Bank of England, is talking about publishing pay data for both gender and ethnicity. So we will see how that's going to go. On the other hand, it's possible that next year's headline, it's more like what the Fortune's article showed a couple of months ago. It says, need proof that companies can have gender diverse boards? Look at France. And that's true. Now France has probably the world's most diverse boards in the world. How did that happen? Really, it's been mandated. So in 2011, France passed a law that says that 40% of all CAC 40 boards needed to be women by 2017. And guess what? It happened. So the question is, does it always have to be mandated, or can we actually do things from within? And the evidence for doing it from within is, immense. And year after year, we've seen that. We've seen that diverse organizations or diverse teams, and diverse not just by gender, by ethnicity, by opinion, by culture, by experience, by ability, do produce better results. They are more creative, they do generate bolder ideas, and as a result, those organizations do perform better. So there is actually a lot of evidence for us to do stuff. But we need to be conscious that while we're making a lot of developments, there are also backlash in places like the US particularly, very publicly building up. So we need to make sure that we have a good view on how we manage diversity. So I have probably 4 things that I think we should be thinking about going forward. Number 1, I think we should now accept that D&I, the business case for D&I is clear. I think that we should stop indulging in the academic discussion of the problem and really move to real solutions. And we know for a very recent McKinsey study that every 10% increase in an organization's senior leadership diversity does create an increase of 3.5% on EBIT. So really, the time is for action, which brings me to my second point. I do think that we do need to continue making action, and we need to believe as an organization that it is within our power to make change. We need to continue making effort, but we also need to continue monitoring, measuring, and reinventing. And that's really my third point. Some of the things we do need to reinvent, and one of the things probably we need to reinvent is language. And language does matter. And we know as humans that we don't like being told what to do. So when we're actually developing our messages around diversion and inclusion and diversity, we need to make sure that the language we use, it's about including groups. It's not around haves and have-nots, and it's not about creating new groups. It's about including them. So we can actually make change, and we don't have to sit around. And finally, is we are going to have backlash. We are going to have unexpected developments. And I think we need to adjust accordingly with a view that this is an enormous change for the organization. So therefore, we probably need to put the same effort that we put in an organization when we manage any large change program. We plan them, we think about our stakeholders, we communicate extensively, we include, we run more and more offshoots of that. And I do believe that if we consider D&I as importantly as any other change efforts, as important as moving to a new building or opening a new factory, we're going to be extremely successful. And I'm not saying here that actually we should be apologetic or we should be slowing down. All I'm saying is we should give it the care that it needs.